On January the 23rd, someone from the local planning authority came to Baldwin Avenue and stuck one A4 piece of paper on a lamppost with the text facing outwards towards the road, and then they left. This was the planning application notification for a 50-metre 5G mast from Hutchinson's 3G, giving 21 days for residents to respond. On June the 8th, engineers came and erected this 15-metre mast to the great shock, distress and anger of local residents who knew nothing about it. I've been told by our local councillor that the proper process has been followed to grant the approval for this. I wholeheartedly disagree. This is not an application for a house extension where every neighbour would have been informed and given an opportunity to make their views known. This is a mobile phone mast emitting electromagnetic frequency into the environment and into our homes 24 hours a day, the long-term health implications of which are not known. The Parliament UK website states, the government encourages LPAs to publicise prior approval applications to allow local residents to make their views known. This is important to make sure that the rollout of telecoms infrastructure is carried out in a transparent and appropriate way. The Government UK website states, it's important for all parties involved in the process to take a positive approach to consultation and engagement, to include consultation notification letters to local residents, site notice, leaflets. In this instance, not one single letter was posted through our doors making us aware of the planning application when it was stuck to a lamppost in the middle of winter when most people were trying to keep warm and worrying about their energy bills. This is definitely not transparent, nor is it appropriate. I've collected numerous signatures from the local residents who state that they would have opposed the planning application. I've brought them here with me tonight, as well as those collected on St Olave's Road, where I've discovered that a further application has been approved for a 20-metre 5G mast. Again, not one single person knew, no one had been consulted. Do you think either of these instances involved all parties in the process and took a positive approach to consultation and engagement? I wonder how you would feel if this happens to you. Apparently, although there will be an increase in the daily level of radiation emitted and absorbed due to these 5G masts, there's nothing to worry about. Truthfully, there hasn't been time to properly test whether it's safe. There's also a lack of scientific analysis on the potential impact of these masts in residential areas on not only the public health, but on the environment, the birds, the bees and the trees. These are some of the reported symptoms for those already living near 5G masts. Intense headaches, ringing ears, chest pain, stomach pain, brain fog, insomnia, depression. Numerous doctors and health experts have urged for caution and a halt on the 5G rollout due to potential long-term health implications. Have you stopped to think about the negative impact these masts will have on our local communities? These are a visual monstrosity. They could devalue our homes and impact our ability to sell. Who will compensate us for this? Who will compensate us so we can protect ourselves inside our own homes against increased levels of radiation? I would like you all to honestly think about whether you'd want one of these 5G masts next to your home, if you'd be willing to take the risk of your own and your family's health. If any of you would, then you can take the one on Baldwin Avenue, as we don't want it. Those living right next to it, like the gentleman who's currently suffering from brain cancer, or the 7-month-old baby whose immune system is still developing, the children who walk past it to go to one of the local three local schools every day, or the lady who's been told by her doctor to keep clear of increased levels of EMF, as it could be fatal to her, do not want it. The negative impact on our local community far outweighs the positive. In fact, I cannot see any positive impact in having these masts in residential areas. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Joe.
Well done, Joe.
I'd like to invite the council planning, Jim Thorpe.
Brilliant.
Jim Thorpe.
Oh, your mic's
Sorry.
on.
Yes. Usual volatile subject. However, most of this stems from where we are with government. The government requires that local planning authorities support the expansion of electronic communications, including next generation mobile technology such as 5G. We've got to support it, they say. Further advice that local planning authorities must determine applications on planning grounds only. They should not seek to question the need for an electronic communication system or set out safeguards different from the International Commission guidelines for public exposure. Planning applications for mast and antenna development by mobile foreign network operators in England are accompanied by a range of supplementary information, including the area of search, details of the consultation undertaken, details of the proposed structure, and the technical justification information about the proposed development. They are also accompanied by a signed declaration that the equipment and installation has been designed to be in full compliance with the requirements of the radio frequency public exposure guidelines of the International Commission on Non-Ionising Radiation Protection. Applications are required to self-certify that the proposal falls within the recommended guidelines. The problem we have with all of this is that this is what the government has laid down for us. There is very little room for us to argue and say we can't do it. Most of the issues coming up are, I would say, health-based or visual-based. But we can't do anything about it. The only thing we can do is to carry on lobbying the government for some sort of sense of this, that the rollout of 5G may be not the idea they think it is, and it needs to be looked at further. But we are pretty well powerless to stop planning applications as they come in. I'm very sorry about that.
We will.
That's not actually true, because there's a council in Warrington that has.
Come up, Joe.
I'm sorry, with the time that's allowed to speak, I cannot let you say it.
Well, they can shove it anyway, because we're not having it.
Please sit down.
We're not having it. We're not going to take it. We won't.
Get up.
For the past 3 years, many of us have suffered mentally from the psychological distress put upon us from a corrupt governmental system. So many were misled, coerced, pushed into making unnecessary decisions which led to people taking their own lives. Suicide rates increased because people couldn't cope with the extreme measures imposed upon our lives and our freedoms. Loss of earnings, the collapse of small businesses, from financial insecurities, from a country being led by crooks and criminals, having us shut down in a lockdown that made no reasonable sense whatsoever. Elderly relatives locked away from family interaction and communication, held like prisoners in care homes, where so many lives were lost from extreme measures such as the use of end-of-life drugs midazolam and morphine supplied by none other than the parasitic criminal Matt Hancock. It left many terminally ill, those with underlying health conditions, and so many seeking help and support from our National Health Service, left without treatment, medication and surgery. Many lives were lost throughout the last 3 years. So many people are unaware that our governments have been infiltrated by criminal organisations such as the World Economic Forum, run by New Age Adolf Hitler, Klaus Schwab, a demonic, satanic, screwed-up excuse of a human being. He holds no purpose to humanity, with his end goal being of eradicating and depopulating all life on Earth by 2030. All governments and councils are now governed by these criminal organisations, such as the World Health Organisation, run by a known terrorist called Tedros, having all governments hand over their people's civil liberties, freedoms and futures with the new pandemic treaty. In partnership with the UN United Nations Army, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, in an event of a future planned virus outbreak, pandemic, they would hold all rights over the world's population, having us restricted in a 15-minute smart city or town, our free movement compromised in a Big Brother asylum, with infrastructure already in place and being implemented over the lockdown, 5G antennas emitting radiation poisoning, ULEZ number plate recognition cameras, QR code scans and facial recognition, keeping us all under surveillance and watched by the 1% lifeless and murdering criminal organisations and elites that control us. They would be able to force mandated poisonous mRNA experimental drugs upon every innocent man, woman and child, without consent and acceptance, a truly frightening, disturbing, dystopian nightmare. We have all encountered over the past 3 years the effects of these illegal, inhumane and unlawful legislations and laws have had on us and our families. So many were left with an uncomfortable and unnecessary decision as to whether they should take what was once known as a safe and effective drug. So many were left with the difficult decision whether to lose their job or take the COVID vaccination. People were made to believe that they were in danger of losing their freedoms if they did not comply, or that they may not be able to travel or see their elderly relatives in fear of infecting them, or worse, be the person that could kill their granny or granddad if they were to spread the virus. We now see the true harms and effects of these big pharma COVID experimental drugs are having on our loved ones, with Pfizer holding back the safety data of their trial stages that killed all animals in the first trial and injured and killed people in the human trial stages. Their documents are now for all to see, with over 158,000 complications and reactions listed, the worst being the newly seen spontaneous and sudden death, worryingly amongst young adults and teens, the high rise in cardiac arrest, pericarditis and myocarditis, and the huge increase in those vaccinated with blood clots. These poor souls have suffered these reactions, and they are now being gaslit and ignored by an NHS who was so insistent on vaccinating everyone who came through their doors. The so-called heroes of the COVID pandemic are now deadly silent of the vaccine injured and those that have sadly passed, leaving millions with no help or support, and with 2,000 excess deaths alone in the UK being recorded since the vax rollout, the bereaved families left behind to pick up the pieces of the government's mass genocide and crimes against humanity. I've made many friends all over the world in the last few years who have had to go through life-changing effects of having the vaccine. To name a few, Josie Barnes, Catherine Parker, Naomi Crouch, Ali Lilly, Z Top, Michelle Lutter, Adam Rowland, John Watt, Alex Mitchell, Kelly Rogers, Lindsay House, Chan Glenn, Megan Fathers, Maria Claire Sanderson, Kay Lacey, Hav, Shylene and Elisa Connors. Truly brave and courageous souls who have fought back against illness, disease and major life-changing complications. They have warned others of the dangers and risks of taking these mRNA shots and saved thousands. They have my utmost respect. Vaccine-injured lives matter, and vaccine injury isn't rare, it's real. Another really difficult subject and agenda being pushed upon our children by the World Economic Forum and the WHO is the over-sexualisation of our children, with the WHO insisting and pushing the teaching and the talk of masturbation at the ages of 3 years and up, the push on transgenderism in the schooling system and the talk of body reassignment, allowing a child to choose one of 72 genders and more if they wish to change their biological status as a boy or a girl, all the while undermining the parents without consent or knowledge of such disturbing talk. I'm sure many would agree it's a form of grooming. There's also a huge push on drag queen story time, men dressed as women reading unnecessary pornographic content and material, much like this book here which you can read afterwards. To young children, it's enough to scare any child. It's not appropriate for education system and only ever made for adult entertainment only. It's truly sickening and disturbing. As parents, we have a moral obligation to protect our children's innocence and safety. My leading words to the council members here present, I want you to know that in any future pandemic, lockdown restrictions on our lives or on any unethical drug mandates, we will not comply and we will do everything in our power to protect our family values, our freedoms and our children's futures. You're either working on behalf of the best interests of our townspeople or you're against us following corrupt governmental agendas. Moving forward, I would like the council to be aware of the huge rise in mental health issues, those suffering from the last 3 years, and offer support to those most at need. Help the vaccine injured with medical care, treatment and most importantly, the acknowledgement and support they so deserve. And most of all, let's ensure our children's innocence and safety is the #1 priority within the education system. Freedom for all, footsteps of freedom.
Thank you.
Spot on, mate. Spot on.
Just to say one thing, Waterstones are supplied, they're selling this and publishing it in the bookstore as we speak. And it's truly frightening what's in this. And there's
Thank you, Mr. Lee. If you would like to go back to because you're taking on other people's time.
Yeah,
Same people
Thank you.
fight these guidelines as well.
That's what I ask. Thank you.
Could I ask the photo held for Cambridgeshire governors to speak, please?
Yeah, obviously it's quite difficult to respond to such a broad question. However, clearly from the environmental point of view, I do have oversight of the Environment and Working Council, and as you will have heard, the Cabinet has set up an Environment and Sustainability Working Group to review the Council's approach to these issues in climate change. And that group will consider a very wide range of issues, including evidence on this important topic, and will be reporting back to Cabinet. I think at that point there's what else I can add at this stage.
Thank you.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just touching on what Aaron Lee said about the children. So I've got a couple of big names here, Alfred Kinsey and John Money. Alfred Kinsey was responsible for the sex education in public schools, and John Lowe was responsible for what we call now the LGBTQ. So I'm going to read a little bit about them and then just tell you what is going on if you're not aware, because you should be. Alfred Kinsey was a sexologist, a biologist and a professor, a social reformer if you like. He wanted a rich society of Christian values, and he worked hard to do so, and he probably did succeed. Kinsey believes that children are sexual from birth, inherently sexual creatures from the cradle to the grave. He believed that true happiness was found in a life of perverse sexual experimentation, no matter what the age. Thank you. It came out Kinsey's research was fraudulent, based on data collected from convicted sex offenders and child molesters. Research conducted in prisons, not in everyday America. Horrific sexual experiments on children, some under the age of 1 year old. He read a book called Sexual Behaviour in the Human Male. It contains an infamous chart called Table 34, which documents the orgasms of very young children, including babies as young as 5 months old. For his heinous acts, instead of suffering the consequences, he is still celebrated by academia and by Hollywood. They made a film with him starring Liam Neeson called Kinsey, and I'm sure you can see it on Netflix, and I suggest each and every one of you take a look at that. His idea formed the foundation for the sexual education for the public schools today. Now we come to John Money. Interesting name. He was a professor, a psychologist, a sexologist at Johns Hopkins University. Gender ideology was his thing, and he coined the phrase gender identity and gender roles. According to John Money, babies are gender neutral from birth. And it's the environment that dictates whether they are a boy or a girl. So if a boy wants to be a girl, he can. And if a girl wants to be a boy, he can. That was his take on it. So he turned his theories on the Reimer twins. Now these were 2 8-month-old boys, named Bruce and Brian. They were due for circumcision, and Bruce went up, but unfortunately the machine was faulty and burnt off his genitalia. Now the parents were absolutely distraught and didn't know what to do, because John Money decided in his wisdom and persuaded them to transition Bruce into a girl, and that is exactly what they did. Plus, he also conducted sexual abuse experiments throughout their childhood, including forcing them to simulate sex acts on each other. This he reported for 10 years and said it was a complete success, but in fact it wasn't a complete success because Bruce never fully accepted the female identity. And it was at this point that his parents told him exactly what had happened, and he transferred back to a boy named David. Now David spoke out a lot about what went on with him and his brother, with John Money, and even was on the Oprah Winfrey show, so you could check the link there, no doubt, and see him speaking out. John left deep scars, and his brother died of an overdose at 38, and sadly David committed suicide. Unfortunately, John Money didn't respond to anything. There was no retraction, no apology. And what we find is this idea was adopted by the mainstream psychology and that forms the basis of what we have today, gender ideology. And this is the problem we are facing in schools today, 4 years and above. If you don't realise, as Aaron has mentioned, there's another book, Let's Talk About Sex, which they sell as well, you can get it online. But in the schools today, at 4 and above, they're teaching our children about sex, to normalise it, so by the time they're 9 and 10, they'll be able to do exactly what they've been taught, and makes it easier for paedophiles. The LGBTQ as well, if they decide they want to, 9 and 10, become a boy or become a girl, that's perfectly alright then, isn't it? Because that's what they're teaching them in schools. Well, I say it's not alright, because from 0 to 7, our children learn the most part of the information they need to process. But if they're teaching from 4 and above than that, they really are getting a wrong picture, a real wrong picture, because they're trying to normalise everything. They're teaching consent in schools where they don't have to listen to their parents, and they can just make a decision themselves when they want to hear about LGBTQ or about sex or about anything. I'm telling you, it's very serious, and this needs to stop. And I suggest most people in this room, in fact in this building, have sons, daughters, granddaughters, grandsons, great-grandsons, granddaughters, nieces, nephews. And I suggest, if you don't already know, looking at the school, looking at the curriculum. Because if you don't, you'll be doing an unjust service to your families. And this is detriment to what's going to happen to the future of our children, and it needs to be sorted. So I suggest, in my opinion, as well as what you need to do around the Suffolk County, which I respectfully, agree things need to be done, but as your additional homework, please check the schools that your family of next kin, whichever way, are involved in, and check the curriculum, because it will get worse unless it stops.
Yes.
And I mean that sincerely. And if you've got people like John Money and Alfred Kinsey leading the way, and which were accepted there in the day, then I suggest we are in big trouble. So please, 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 do your due diligence and look into this. Please don't sit there and look at me and think, well, there's another waste of space here. So this is serious, and it needs to be sorted now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. Would the leader of council like to reply to it?
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mayor for Jeff.
Yes. Mayor Cliff.
You may say. So, I'm not an anthropologist. I don't know in any detail the work of these people you mentioned, so I can't really comment on that. I can comment on 2 things. One is that if you look out through the window, when you're outside the building, perhaps you'll see we're proudly flying the LGBTQ plus flag, and this administration, as the previous one, supports the rights of LGBT people. I'm very proud of the fact that we do that. You asked us to look at our own families like that. As you were saying, I was thinking about my own family. I think about my wider family. In my wider family, there are boys and girls. There are children who see themselves as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender. And I have to say, they're all very happy with their identities. And as an ex-teacher, I know that schools are very careful and very sensitive about the teaching they do on these issues. And I think it is really important that they do this teaching, because I think we understand today, perhaps better than we did in the past, everyone has the right to their own identity. And I hope all my fellow councillors will support me in saying
Unbelievable. They're against us.
As a council,
They're against us.
LGBTQ plus rights.
Thank you, Cliff.
No.
I let you go over the time. I was very generous with you. Please respect my decision. We've got to move on to the next
They're against
thing.
us.
That's why we're in the mess we are.
Yeah, we are, Zach.
Shocking.
Absolutely.
I want to begin by asking a rhetorical question. How many of you believe Bill Gates to be the philanthropist that media portrays him to be? We know Bill Gates is an incredibly wealthy individual, but are you all aware that by his foundation he directly funds the WEF, the CDC, the FDA, the NIH, Johns Hopkins Institute, CEPI, Pfizer, BioNTech, Oxford University, Gavi, MHRA, to name just a few. You can check this out by going on to his foundation.org/about/committed-grants if you want to find any more. We all know that COVID was the result of gain of function research, signed off during the Obama administration. We all know it's released to lead us into the Great Reset, Klaus Schwab's dystopian wet dream for globalisation and totalitarian technocracy. COVID was a campaign of hardcore fear porn. Behavioural Insights team pushed a military-style psychological operation for obedience to authority, using fear, gaslighting, threats and coercion to terrorise people in submission and compliance. I'm a mother of 3 adults. My middle child has profound multi-complex disabilities and reliant for all care needs. I provide all of her care outside of my working hours, during which she has a personal assistant. I'm a care home assistant practitioner working with people living with various stages of dementia. Back in 2020, care home residents had the most draconian measures imposed upon them. It was beyond inhumane to deny people seriously reduced or lacking capacity from seeing their loved ones. The deterioration in these vulnerable people was physically evident and their quality of life rapidly declined. How on earth can people think that segregating these people from their families and each other because they had to socially isolate was okay? Many of these vulnerable people were unable to recognise their family members' faces, many had dysphasia, so were unable to speak to them too. Technology confused them. Staff wearing face masks frustrated them as they were unable to see the kind faces they knew or understand the muffling words spoken. This must never happen again. Matt Hancock has an awful lot to answer for. It seems at present he needs that protective ring he allegedly threw around the care homes to save himself from drowning in his own lies. We then move on to the vaccines and how these were touted as the route out of this pandemic. Our residents had their first jabs in January 2021 alongside some of my colleagues. COVID arrived in our home for the first time just under 2 weeks later. Then came the care home workers' jab mandates, imposed by the despotic banker Sajid Javid. I wrote to Jo Churchill with my concerns, but as she always does, toed the Tory party line with a cut and paste response. As twice vaccinated colleagues and residents contracted COVID, it was highly evident that these jabs were far from efficacious, just like the face masks. If they worked, why were so many NHS and care home workers off with COVID in 2020 when everyone wore them? I was in fact one of the 40,000 care home workers fired for exercising my fundamental human rights bodily autonomy on November 11, 2021. Quite the date, Armistice Day. The Public Health Control of Diseases Act of 1984, Section 45B states that measures cannot include requirements to undergo medical treatment which is designed to include vaccination in the event of public health response. I cannot convey the anger I felt at being fired for not taking a vaccine, especially when I've never had a flu jab and I don't take any prescribed medications. Not one of my colleagues, managers or residents' families agreed with the mandates, believing in bodily autonomy like I do myself. Residents' families were devastated when I informed them that I would likely not be working there for long and explained why. Many begged me to have that jab, but not for my own health or for their loved ones' health, but in order for me to be able to continue working with their loved ones. Can you imagine being punished for not having medical intervention for something that is far from efficacious or safe, despite working on the front line since the beginning? That punishment extended to my partner, who is a lecturer. As the only unvaccinated staff member in his department, and one whose twice vaccinated colleagues tested positive in 2021, despite his negative PCR swab, was unable to return to work for 10 days, unlike his negative vaccinated colleagues who were able to return as soon as they had their result. My daughter too was punished because I declined vaccination for her. Since May 2021, she has not been allowed to attend her once-weekly day centre, courtesy of Suffolk County Council. I returned unvaccinated to my old job in June 2022. Today marks the 1 year since I returned. I was met with happy colleagues, residents and loved ones when they saw me. I contracted COVID for the first and only time in October 2022 and can state with 100% certainty that it was a resident that had received 5 COVID jabs. She sadly died the day after her positive confirmation and she has several comorbidities. I had nothing more than a headache and a 24-hour temperature, the same response my body exhibits when I'm run down. My question is, Bill Gates seems to have his will turned into reality because he funds governmental and non-governmental organisations. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is the second largest donor to the WHO behind the US government and the fourth by Gavi. The World Health Organization Pandemic Treaty poses a huge threat to our civil liberties. They'll be able to call a pandemic and assert powers to implement harmful measures on a whim, ceding our sovereignty as a country. Bill Gates funds the Tony Blair Institute, and we know that Blair is pushing hard for digital identity. Digital passports are now pushed by the WHO and the UN is just the beginning of digital slavery, hence the 5G rollout. How can you assure us, the public, that our civil liberties will never be at threat again?
Thank you. Councillor Waterman.
Thanks very much for your question, your heartfelt explanation of your views. I'm afraid probably most of what you said I do not agree with. However, you have your right to make your views clear. Unfortunately, most of what you've asked for is not within the power of this district council to effect. What I would say, and I'm sure everyone in the room would agree with this, was that during the pandemic some mistakes were made. I don't think anyone would say that everything was done perfectly, and hopefully we can learn as a society from the mistakes that were made and actually do it better again. But I would also say that, from just speaking personally, I've been vaccinated. My wife's been vaccinated, some of my family, we've had no ill effects. And,
What about when people died?
Quiet, please. Can you let me speak, please? Well, you're allowed to speak, and you went over your time.
You have to get aggressive.
Thank you.
And, you know,
Disgusting.
I agree with your basic premise that we should all follow our conscience. I commend you for doing that, and I'm sorry that you had to suffer consequences for that. But all I would say finally would be that you mentioned certain people, Bill Gates, Tony Blair. I don't recognise your description of them in the way you describe them, and I think most people wouldn't. Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you. That brings public participation to an end. Thank you everyone who's attended and spoken.
And we've done a load of speeches, the five of us, and we've had an unusual reaction towards tonight's speeches. Not what we were looking for, and I think we were looking for a better reaction, to be honest. Unfortunately, they're shown that they're against us as such, and you know, we've brought up some really sort of subjects that they should have acknowledged us with, and gave us a bit more time and a bit more time to listen to especially Joe, with the emotion shown about the 5G mask. What do you think of?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when someone's like that taking the speech and you've got your heart and soul into it, and they just really just obliterated it by just, well, not even really taking much interest in what's going on, reading from what the government says, you know, not having an own opinion themselves, backing the decision, what she said. So, and even the same to my point about the kids, you know, I think he was more concerned that I had a problem with the LGBT community or whatever, which I don't. Because people can be what they want to be. It was just that I was talking about they were sexualising and normalising this with the kids at 4 years and above in the school, which is not on. And if he's totally oblivious to really what is going on, then really he should be in the council. Probably half of them as well. So what do you think, Terry?
I think you've said it already. I mean, exactly what you think. You've got quite emotional.
Come here with a good mood today, and I've got the right up now, which ain't the way, obviously. But, it's pointless. We're banging heads. We'll keep coming, obviously. You know, it's what we've got to do. But getting the message across to these people, you know, reading from scripts from the government, it's just frustrating.
I actually found it quite concerning, if I'm honest, with some people in a public gallery. They had their frustrations, not loud, but a councillor called across and said, "Shut up." And that councillor is working for the people who are sitting in that public gallery. So although it might not be the right way to speak in the public gallery at the time, I don't think it was the right way for a councillor to tell the public to shut up. You know. And I also recorded all of the videos today, and I did see a few times councillors smirking.
Yep.
You know, which is worrying. You know.
Yeah, just to recap on that, I mean, I paused in what I was saying because the lead man, he was chatting with someone, and once when I got his attention, I said thank you, and then carried on doing what I was doing, because it's certainly rude when someone is actually talking that you talk over them.
Absolutely, Donna, what do you think? I mean, with your reaction with your daughter, and when you speak about a subject that's really, really important, and the reaction was poor.
I had my experience of basically dismissed. I felt that they weren't listening to anything that any of us were saying, that they had their own agenda that they were going to speak on, regardless of what the outcome of any of our reasons were concerned, especially particularly with Jeff, completely blown out of context, and they clearly don't care. They've got their own agenda and they're pushing on, and they're taking their orders from central government, they made that quite clear in this document tonight.
Yeah,
exactly the same, and it's very interesting when you are coming to meetings like this. These people behind us, Westlight House, then it's being our representation, just like they are in government and stuff. No, they're just all hand puppets, and I just see it as they're all vaccinated, and they won't be listening to a word that any of us have got to say about any of the issues that were raised, really concerning, heartfelt issues, and we're just fighting against we're just going bang ahead against it.
Like Jeff said, we'll just get Zach said, we'll just keep coming back.
Yeah,
Make
we
sure
will.
our voices are heard. Joe, do you want to say a bit? Do you want to say a bit on video? Just about your reaction to how you felt with their reply back to you?
Hello. I was speaking about the 5G mast installation in Youth Navigate, and I was just quite disgusted that my ward councillor hasn't even acknowledged my existence. And also that people weren't listening. I could see people chatting and they weren't paying attention, they weren't listening to people who wanted to speak about really important issues, and I just think that that's an absolute disgrace that these people that we elect don't listen to us and they just pass us off as crazy people. But they will listen when it comes down the line and it impacts them. By then it will be too late.
You know, one thing I would like to say is, if this goes out live to everyone that we know, we respect, in this community especially, I'm hoping next time we have a meeting here, many people will join us, because they should be concerned by the replies we had, because they were disgusting. These people, as Joe said, they work on behalf of us, the people, and they're showing ignorance, arrogance, and it's not right. It's completely unfair. It is.
Not fair.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Thank you very much.